Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's Agribusiness Global Live webinar, Advancing or Stagnating, Update on Drone Development and Formulation. My name is Sarah Webb, and I'm editor of Agribusiness Global and moderator for today's webinar.
And my name is Lauren Milligan. I'm the content specialist for Agribusiness Global, and I'll be co-hosting and leading the Q&A session for today's webinar.
I also want to tell you what Agribusiness Global has planned for the rest of 2026. We have 3 virtual seminars this year, with each focused on a region. The Agribusiness Global LATAM virtual seminar was held on March 11th, and the ABG Africa virtual seminar was held on July 9th. And you can watch both of those on demand on abg.com. And then we will also have our ABG Asia virtual seminar, which will be held on November 19th. So that one is coming up. Each seminar is 3 hours free of charge and brings together experts so you can learn what's happening in various sectors of the industry. Also, we had the Agribusiness Global Trade Summit on August 5th and 6th in Las Vegas this year. So that happened just a couple of weeks ago. The in-person event brought together crop protection, biologicals, and fertilizer decision makers. And next year's event will be in Dallas, Texas in the US on August 4th and 5th. Registration will be opening early next year. You can scan the QR code that you see on your screen to stay updated on the event details. And lastly, we'd like to thank Rainbow Agro for sponsoring this and this series of webinars. Without their sponsorship, we wouldn't be able to bring you these educational webinars, so we thank you, Rainbow Agro. Now, allow me to introduce our panelists. Dr. Darryl Ramoutar is Global Technical Director, Agriculture at gChem. Greg Lindner is Technical Business Development Director at Croda Agriculture. Amro Nee is International Sales Director at XAG. And Rachel Lowe is Senior Crop Protection Analyst at Ag Bioinvestor. Thank you again to all of our panelists for participating today, and thank you all for joining. Let's go ahead and get started. So our first question, I'll start with Amro. Can you talk to me, is drone adoption increasing, decreasing, or stagnating in 2026? What are some of the biggest factors influencing drone adoption, and which regions are seeing the biggest increase?
Thank you very much, Sarah. And this is Amro from SAG. And from the SAG Global Field Observations, I'm going to show that drone adoption of agriculture is currently increasing in 2026. There's no at all like any stagnating at all. The third course is uneven across the markets. Like domestic market, China is very maturing. And in 2026, that we have more than like 300,000 drones across the China market. But compared to the last years, that we have a lot of increasing actually. For overseas market, this is most of fascinating part because the global market grows also very fast. Like comparing like international markets right now have more than like 200,000 drones, but comparing like 2 years ago, there's only like 100,000. So the development is very quick. Most of the overseas agriculture drones shows a very strong over year and year. There's a 3 core driving factors shaping adoption. I have to tell the first is the labor shortage. This is very obviously since the COVID-19 from 2023. Many farmers regional face a very strict rural workforce, like drones cut a heavy mature workflow from the spraying, sowing, or fertilizing. The second part is economic return. Farmers can easily do calculation about the IOI compared to the drone adoptions to the manual operation. And also like the drone have a lot of benefits and like avoid soil compactions from the ground machinery, efficiency, and saving waters. So the farmers easy to calculation about the drones from IOI. So it would be worth to invest. And also it can cover more hectares per day and also to saving up a lot of labors. And the third is about hardware maturity. This is most important part. Like comparing 3 to 4 years ago, like drone still not there yet to capable to carry a lot of heavy payload like 80 kg or 100 kg like today. But today the drone is not only just a payload or just a function for spraying, it's completely modeled with a functional platform like spraying, fertilizing, and spreading, seeing, also mapping and delivery all in one together. So this is going to be lowering the barrier for investment of the farmers. And also from the operational side, the farmers can be more easy than before for operating drones. It's a fully autonomous. And also from the new technology like SAG, you will be becoming like the drones completely fully integrated. For the regional, I have to tell, like Southeast Asia is the most strongest momentous area for developed drone adoptions, like Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, because that's the rapid urbanizations pushing the farmers, they have to go toward drone adoptions. Like food automation is the very important part for them. And outside, like rice, like food, ultra, this is also very important for them to bring up the economic growth. Like Latin America as well, like Brazil, they're also the large-scale farmers. They are looking forward to using drone a lot. But Eastern Europe and some of the area in UK and Europe countries still need to be updated a little bit about the drone spraying regulation. This is the most biggest part to bring the challenging while they're using the drone. Like Africans, like Middle East, they are in very early stage about adopting drones, but they're growing very, very quick. And for the North Americans and Western Europe, they still have a lot of problem about restriction about regulation. So pretty much like that. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Rachel, I'll go ahead with you next. Is drone adoption increasing, decreasing, or stagnating in 2026? What are some of the biggest factors influencing drone adoption, and which regions are seeing the biggest increase?
Yeah, thank you. So I think my response is, much the same as what Amro's just been saying. So here at AgBioInvestor, I mean, we would say that adoption is definitely increasing in 2026, although the rate of growth is definitely quite different depending on the market. So Asia, I agree, remaining the most established region, particularly China. And we're also seeing quite a lot of strong development in Latin America, particularly in Brazil. Speaking of Brazil, what's quite interesting is that drone use is increasingly associated with your kind of larger commercial crops such as soybean, maize, sugarcane, rather than just being limited to your smaller or your more kind of difficult to access fields. And as to why adoption is growing, several reasons. One of them, the technology has been improving rapidly over the past few years. We're seeing payloads increasing, operating times are better, contractors becoming more experienced in using drones at the commercial scale as well. And yeah, labor, definitely another factor, particularly in markets where drones can be used as a replacement for backpack spraying or reducing the number of people required for an application. Kind of building on that, field access is kind of another important driver, I would say. Drones can be really useful when soils are wet or fields are steep or fragmented, or where kind of entering with a ground sprayer traditionally would potentially cause damage to a crop. But I think if we're looking at 2026, what's becoming more important is farm economics. So as we're probably all quite aware, farm margins are under quite a lot of pressure in a number of major agricultural markets. Commodity prices for a lot of crops relatively weak, while fertilizer, fuel, and other input costs remain quite high. So as well, the disruption associated with the US-Iran conflict has added further pressure to energy and fertilizer markets. So that can have a knock-on effect onto drone adoption in two different ways. So firstly, it probably makes farmers more cautious about buying equipment outright, particularly if the drone is viewed as an additional capital item rather than, a replacement for something that they already use. But on the other hand, it also makes drone application more attractive, I think, where you can see a clear financial benefit. For example, if it reduces labor, avoids, with from your traditional, your larger equipment, or allows treatment to be made when a ground sprayer can't enter the field, or as well, with drone applications, if it's shown to reduce the amount of product being applied. So there's definitely, I would distinguish between kind of drone sales and drone use in this case. Farmers may be slightly less willing in this financial situation to own the equipment themselves, but will still be willing to use drones through contractors. And then I guess just to kind of round it all up, the last main driver I would see is definitely regulation, one of the other major factors. So markets with a clear regulatory framework tend to develop more quickly because farmers, your contractors, and the crop protection companies themselves have generally more confidence about how the technology is used. So in general, overall, we at AgBioInvestor would describe the market as definitely still growing, but now with much more attention being paid to whether the economics work at the farm level. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Rachel. And next we'll go with Darryl. Is drone adoption increasing, decreasing, or stagnating in 2026? What are the biggest factors influencing drone adoption, and which regions are seeing the biggest increase?
Yeah, it felt like I would echo what the previous two have done an excellent job sort of summarizing, what I would say. For sure. I think expanding, in 21, there were like 100,000 drones being used. I think 24 is like 350,000. Now it's, over 600,000 drones being used, right? So clearly people are buying drones, people are using drones. Greater amount in Asia, Latin America growing a little bit. North America is behind, primarily due to regulations. We're operating under the same EPA guidelines that you use for fixed wing aircraft. So that's sort of hindering adoption. But to echo what Rachel said, even though you're seeing this growth in drone use, market size is supposed to be CAGR is 20%, I think, since 20. It's kind of slowed down in the last year, I would say, primarily due to the economic factors that Rachel mentioned, right? The war, inputs being a little more expensive. So yeah, growing for sure. There are some headwinds based on political economic factors globally. But I think once these things are resolved, you would see a CAGR try to kick back up, through 18, 20% through 2030.
All right, thanks, Darryl. And all of you in your response mentioned regulations in some capacity, which actually leads right into our next question. And Rachel, we'll start with you for the next question. How are regulations affecting drone-based crop protection applications?
Yeah, so as I said, regulation obviously one of the major drivers of adoption and usage. So regulation, definitely one of the main factors kind of determining how quickly drone spraying develops. So kind of two separate issues, I would say. So the first is your aviation regulation. So this is, I guess, whether the drone can be legally operated for agricultural spraying, what certification an operator might need, and what restrictions then might apply to that operation. And then the kind of second issue is then pesticide regulation, whether or not a particular crop protection product is actually permitted to be applied by drone and under what conditions. So that second point on pesticide regulation can sometimes be overlooked, and the focus is more on the aviation regulation. But a country can allow agricultural drones from an aviation perspective, but if the crop protection labels don't allow the application method, commercial use is obviously going to remain very restricted and limited. But we are seeing signs that this is starting to change. As an example, Canada, Health Canada changed its policy, I think, in about June of this year, so that products already registered for conventional aerial application can, in general, also be applied by drone under the same aerial use conditions. So that's, I would consider that quite a significant development, because it reduces the need to treat drone application as a completely separate use case for every product. Europe, generally still more restrictive in that regard, although the regulatory direction is gradually becoming more accommodating. So I think the broad trend is towards regulators starting to become more comfortable with drone application as more data is becoming available on things like drift, deposition, efficacy, and operator exposure. Pace obviously still varying considerably by country, and that remains kind of one of the reasons adoption is much faster in some regions rather than others.
All right, thanks, Rachel. And Darryl, we'll go with you next. Can you talk about how regulations are affecting drone-based crop protection applications?
Yeah, again, great job, Rachel, summarizing, the landscape. I would say, speaking about, North America is where, we do most of our business in the pesticide world. You see that, the FAA and EPA have to kind of get together on aligning, certification for flying a drone with regulatory guidelines. You look at India, I think they have 407, something like this, registered, labeled products for drones. I think, South Korea has about 200, Japan about 300. US, we don't really have any, right? So we have these guidelines that really don't match up. You think you use a fixed wing airline and you have a product that's concentrate that you can mix with water, or oil if you'd like and apply, but drone formulations come ready to use, with specific guidelines that would manage drift and things like this. So we don't really have a set of rules yet. So the EPA is definitely a hindrance to our adoption, of drone technology. I think, you know, the big ag companies are trying to mitigate some of this by collecting the data you would need on drift and deposition and efficacy and that kind of thing. But again, that's not a majority of their economic return for development. So I think we're definitely slow, due to FAA and EPA regulations. You don't see these same problems in Asia, and we're probably a little more strict, for, obvious reasons. We're applying poison to the environment. I think, Canada coming on board, very similar to PMRAs now, like the US, in terms of, same label guidelines that you would use for fixed wing airlines. But, the EU is very strict when it comes to pesticide use, right? So my assumption is that they would probably be 5 to 6 years behind where we are today. So again, North America's coming along. Asia's, way advanced in terms of, application guidelines. And the EU, I think, is lagging, because of their strict regulatory perspective.
All right, thanks, Darryl. And Amro, we'll go with you next. Can you talk about how regulations are affecting drone-based crop protection applications?
Thank you. I think Richard and Darryl be answered the most. Yeah, but also we will sum up a little bit more, like something that's when we're doing business developments, we have actually a lot of challenging what the topic today, like the regulation actually is affected by the whole business growing. This is very obviously, it's like I just also give a mention, like in the North America, like what Darryl say, this is very restrictful, and even though there's some scenario that we may be able to apply drones, but actually you are only able to apply for the testing purpose or demonstration purpose, but it's not really scale up. Example, I want to mention a little bit, like when we're going to Canada, and seems very challenging is because that the drone as a transportation tool, and that they will manage by the authority of the transportation authority to manage anything fly on the sky. But because the drones can spray chemical, then you need to in order chemical operational authority, that you need to take license for both, and they don't have any regulations to support certification for such product at all. So this is a very conflict area we are talking about such kind of technology. And not even us, that even the farmers, they fully aware that the benefit about agricultural drones, and also especially like Rachel say that especially the soil or snowing is getting soft, and you're not able to get agricultural machinery to get into the field, but drone can highly perfect matching about this kind of mission. But the farmers cannot do anything. But actually, like I see this is a very important, and like what we see in Asia, like South America, Southern Korea, and China and Japan, regulation is very important as a very key factors to driving the drones numbers growing. Example, like if the country is supporting drones regulations, and even they will provide subsidies to supporting the farmers having a drones operating, and also getting the problem solved about the labor shortage issues for the rural area as well. And for the maturity of the regulations, not only just about how to use, but also about the training programs and also commercialized service operations, like the ladder contractors certification. In China, we have a completely fully system like that to supporting about the program, farmers how to use the drones, how to train the drones, how to get subsidized. This is completely regulation. But different countries have different schedule and different steps. Like what Darryl mentioned, that EU is completely got late behind about these sectors. But we observed a very positive trend during my periods, like 5 years development of overseas market. We see more and more government now, they are trying to learn about from the real world about the field results before they are conservative about the drone application for the safety purpose, how the drones get disconnecting about the signal, how about the remote controls got problem and the drones will fly around to hit somebody or hit the buildings. But no, now they are already fully confident about the drone applications and how the drones fly safety more, and also how the drones duration. They are more worried about how the drones will done the result in the field. Would the drones will do a really good result for the crops? This is something that they are starting to more interesting right now. The drones are really can be a replacement to the big sprayer or manual, can do better work than the laborers in the field, grow management. So now as SAG, we are the drone manufacturers as well. We also have a lot of inquiry from different governments, including Asia, also Europe, and also from the Americas regions, that they are concerning also how the applications with the drone should be a place, like a regulation supposed to be adjusted. And they are not just about asking, but they actually come and visit us. They're working together with us. They want to looking down about a framework and special Asian markets. They are starting not only just a presentation or regulation on paperwork, but they actually come to the field with us. They will go asking our authority from the government and looking down how the regulation starting to building from the paperwork into the real world, to supporting the farmers to have such the drone regulations to be done and satisfy such technology imported into the countries. Yeah, so I see a little bit change right now on the market. Yeah, I want to share here. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And before we move into our next question, I just want to remind our audience members that have joined us live to take advantage of the Q&A box, which you can find at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you don't see it, hit the More button, and then it will likely pop up. If you have any questions for our panelists, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and we will try to get to them at the end. Anything we don't answer, we'll send to our panelists after the fact, and they'll answer them, and we'll get it posted on our website along with the recording. All right, so for our next question, I'll go ahead and start with Darryl. How can companies position themselves as a main player?
Yeah, I think a couple of things, right? So when you think about the market, I think what companies can do is, one, try to, understand where the growing markets are, right? So potentially invest in Brazil, invest a little more in North America, and now that Canada's online in Canada, and still, why doing that? Try to, maintain that business that you have in Asia. The other thing is, I think companies need to, starting now, like I said before, work with the regulatory bodies in North America, PMRA, EPA, FAA, to develop drone formulations that can be ready to use, that could be oil-based, but also, explore technology that can make them, water-based as well. So really two-pronged. One, in the market, understand where growth opportunities are, and then invest in R&D to develop specific formulations for this application.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Darryl. And Amro, we'll go with you next. How can companies position themselves as a main player?
Thank you. I think this is a very important question to us. To become a main player in the global agricultural robotic, companies cannot be only just rely on selling hardware. From our view, a company is supposed to build several key things into the market. The first one, we have to build about an end-to-end agricultural robotic ecosystem. This is very important, not only just about drones, but we also develop from drones into the different kind of a solution, like ground solution, like IoT solution, and also a autopilot system completely to support the ecosystem people built. And also the drones today, not only just about manual operations, but also we're looking for drones supposed to be food automation and solve out the financial problem IOI of the farmers when they want to invest in such technologies. And the second thing is we have to be deep market localization. This is quite important for the next step about the companies for agricultural robotic. We're just not able to be simply supplying the technology, but also we're looking forward to how our technology adapts with the local problems. as a global winners, it's not only just focus about exporting, but we need to recognize a specific product with adoption, like job size, like the way we are flying the drones, and also the crops, how they are having a problems with the job adoptions. And we also need to be learning down, and also we need to build up that local after sales network with the reliable partners and operator training. This is something we need to adjust to build up the reputation of the market. And the third, that's we need to have more deep enough about heavy in domain-specific innovations. It's very important. The general purpose about drone tech is not enough, actually. After several years, the people are not just satisfied about the liquid spraying or fertilizing, and we need some like a local patents and also some local innovation which is specific for the local problems. Example like the environment in China, we're growing the bananas. Actually, the way we are growing the banana and how to do the grow management is quite different than the way in Thailand. So we have a lot of like a local situation, like the terrain, like the durians. Some area they also have some specific crops like durians in Thailand or Vietnam, Indonesia. Most of them they are going in the area which is not flat area or not flat at all. So they have a lot of local problem, and our drones have to be solve this problem with the different kind of terrain, mountain, river rains, spraying. So we need such kind of special technologies to solve out the local problems and troubleshooting for them. And the fourth part is also the very important part that we need to cooperate with the value chains and also to work with the local agro input suppliers and also farmers cooperative. This is very important to meet up with the local government institutions and also to integrate together with their standards, education backgrounds, and also with the market out there so that you can understand better for the cultures. So by this, you're able to understand better how the companies will adjust them by themselves, integrate together with the local system, and how also driving together with the local users into a completely new area with the drones. Yeah. So this is my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Amaral. And finally, Rachel, we'll go with you. How can companies position themselves as a main player?
Yeah, so I think I might come at this question at a slightly different angle. And this is in the perspective of the crop protection companies themselves. So for these companies, the main opportunity isn't necessarily in the drone itself. The kind of more interesting position may be around understanding how products that they produce perform when they're applied through drones, and then integrating that kind of application into the broader tools and services that this company might already provide. So a formulation developed for a conventional sprayer might be used at 100 or 200 liters per hectare. And then with a drone, the carrier volume might be much lower. So the spray mixture has to become more concentrated, and then the behavior of the formulation can then change. So that raises, questions around droplet size, evaporation, wetting, etc. So companies that understand those potential issues and can provide clear application guidance are likely to be in a stronger position. I also think there's an opportunity for companies to integrate drone application into their existing digital agriculture platforms or ecosystems. So if a company already has an app or a digital platform that can, say, identify weeds, pests, diseases, there would then be that kind of logical next step in linking that diagnosis ability to a treatment recommendation, and then potentially even to a drone application itself. So, for example, a platform could identify a weed problem, recommend an appropriate product, generate a prescription map, and then provide the application parameters needed for the drone or contractor who would then be using a drone. So this would allow more of the process, from identifying the problem through to treating it, to sit within the same system developed by this one company. So for companies with an existing crop protection portfolio, there's, the obvious commercial benefit there if their own products can be recommended within that workflow. But I think the platform still has to be agronomically credible. If it's seen simply as a way of pushing proprietary products out, farmers and advisors might be kind of less willing to use it. So strongest position for crop protection companies maybe then having a relatively open platform, but one where the company's own products have the best developed, efficacy data, formulation guidance, and drone application protocols. So the current farm economy also changes how companies should approach the market. Like I said before, farmers not likely to be persuaded simply because the product works well through a drone. I'd say a more important question is whether using it that way improves the economics of the application. So that might mean lower cost per hectare, less crop damage, better timing, or the ability to kind of only treat part of a field, as and where needed. So I think, just to kind of summarize that, companies that are best positioned will be those that can combine product performance, application knowledge, digital decision support tools, and a kind of clear economic benefit for the farmer.
All right, thank you so much, Rachel. And for our next question, we'll be going with Greg and Darryl. So Greg, we'll start with you. The question is, can you discuss recent formulation trends? Is R&D targeting the drone formulation market or making it a consideration when creating new products? And what formulation qualities are most important for drone application?
Okay, just want to make sure I was unmuted for that one. Yeah, this is a great question, and I'm going to pick up right on the back of what Rachel said. When you look at drone is an application modality. It's a way the product finds its way into the field. When you talk about the pesticide itself and formulation challenges, we look at formulation trends as being focused on, well, what are the greatest needs out there in the marketplace? What is driving investment in formulation? So there's always going to be interest in innovative new products to establish new pest control standards. But here in the world as it is today, with the economic challenges being what it is, there's a kind of recent resurgence toward generic formulations. And when you look at the differences in how formulations are developed, innovative products have built-in opportunities to address new needs. Generic products tend to be followers. They simply replicate other products that are out there. And depending on cash in hand at the farm gate, how well the farm economy is going, you see a shift back and forth in grower preference for one type of product versus the other. And those tend to have real impact on where crop protection companies, formulation developers and registrants put their investment. It's where the return is going to be. Where do they think that's going to be? And they have to balance that against the timeline for taking that product, developing it, and putting it into the market. So you see some real opportunities here globally for looking at, well, what are the basic challenges that the formulator wants to consider? If it's going to go through a drone, what does that product have to do? Does it need to do anything differently than the established generic or innovative product would need to do? So it's always broken down into a performance attribute for the product. Does it work well in drones? And we heard a number of our panelists already talking about this. It's about what the product does. Will it work in a control program? So the qualities around what makes a drone application different in the context of an established product or a more typical formulation approach is, well, what are the challenges it presents that are not presented by, for example, ground application or some of the other existing application types? And those really center on the concentration at which you do the application and the complexity of the mixture. So most of it really distills down, at least initially, into a compatibility problem. Can you get all the materials that you need in a spray mixture to deliver the control that you're looking for? And then the challenge really becomes, do we need to change anything about it? And looking at formulating products specifically for drone, it's a regular conversation. Registrants ask themselves this all the time. But when you look at the variability, we talk about, there was the great example about even just banana cultivation. It looks different in different regions. Well, the pests that you're going after are different in different regions, and the spectrum of resistance. So the products that would be required are different. So really, every time you approach this, it comes to how do you produce the right control at the farm using existing formulations, and it really looks at how do you get these products to work well together. So compatibility really does drive what formulators are looking for, at least at the first level. And very quickly after compatibility is, does it actually deliver the effect in the field? So the performance of that final mixture, does it get sprayed completely? Is it homogeneous? So these are standard approaches that are used in the registrant community to develop more effective formulations. And these formulations are really designed to go after the largest, most attractive revenue segments in each marketplace. It's if that model holds true, and I think it does, the degree to which drones dominate certain markets and the reliance of registrants on share in those markets is what will drive drone specific application. The last element I would bring forward is there's a huge timeline difference when you talk about developing for specific application environments. Most registration processes, if you talk about revenue aggregation, the greatest global value in formulation, we rely on registering products in regions where it takes time to register new formulations. So generic products don't present the opportunity necessarily to do something different if drone application requires something different. So you have to invest in new formulation. Is it worth it? And if it is, can you get it into the market in a reasonable time period? And we heard discussion around drone technology changing. The degree to which registrants see the drone market maturing, coming to its final state, in other words, the carrying capacity, the mixtures, then you might see greater tendency toward aggregating that need and making drone specific formulation choices. I think for the most part, it's about the economy here. It's the farm economics and the risk associated with developing new formulations, particularly specific for an application where you may not be confident that it is fully mature. So there's a number of different overlays that go into a registrant's decision about formulating specifically for drones. Today, it distills down to, will it work in a drone application environment? And then can you apply it, picking up what a lot of the other panelists have already mentioned.
Well said. Thank you, Greg. And Darryl, we'll go with you next. Can you discuss recent formulation trends? Is R&D targeting the drone formulation market or making it a consideration when creating new products? And then what formulation qualities are most important for drone application?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I would say, I work for a solvent company, and we're 100% working on drone technology. And the way we work is we work with large ag chem companies or small generics, and they would come to us and say, hey, could you assist with the formulas? And in the past few years, a lot of the questions are around two things: drones and biologicals, right? So I would say for sure people are thinking about drone applications, people are working on formulations, and as a solvent company, a supplier, an inert company, we're thinking about how we fit into this ecosystem. But not only us, like a company like Croda, they supply adjuvants to everybody, right? So like I assume that, Greg would probably say the same thing. They're also getting asked a lot about, how these things function in drone formulations. From a technology standpoint, I would say, when you look at, big AgTech companies that have mosquito control, platforms or formulations, they already know how to make, aqua and oil-based formulations that go through ULV system, right? That's ready to use. So in reality, that technology, as far as formulation development for pesticides already, kind of known, and those formulations can be adjusted just by, nozzle preference to create a larger droplet size, greater than 100 microns for agricultural drones. And, you think, ULV for mosquitoes is, 5 to 10 microns. So you can control that on formulations you already have. My sort of preference for, formulations, both in, synthetics and biologicals, I believe that, companies like Croda, like us, we have the technology, that can enhance drone formulations. So, for example, you look at trisiloxane surfactants, right? They're excellent at spreading and overcoming resistance at the same time, right? You look at DMSO, which we make, binds very tightly to water, allowing some of these droplets in an aqua-based formulation to stay together, right? So you don't need the oil-based formulation much. So maybe you get away with an EC rather than a ULV. So these are the kinds of things that we think about. But I think, the when you think about the things that go into drone formulations, you think about the actives and the co-formulants. I'm a believer that, we can enhance efficacy through thoughtful inclusion of co-formulants, including, spreaders, stickers, penetrants, that kind of thing. And I think, the other thing that nobody's mentioned yet, I think like biologicals are, growing all the time, and we get similar questions. We get, drones, and we get a ton of biological questions, right? So, companies should think about, how do these, living spores or potentially plant extracts, how are they applied, in a small micron size and to enhance efficacy, but also, um, enhance survival of the spores in case you're applying a biological. So, I think, there's things you can do on the synthetic side. Clearly, biologicals is a big, area for growth. I think, there's lots of opportunity in that area for sure.
Thanks, Darryl. And that's actually a great segue into our next question. What market opportunities exist when it comes to adjuvant drone formulation with synthetics and with biologicals? And Greg, we'll go ahead with you for this one to start as well.
Sure. This is not, we talk about combining two really important drivers of change today. We talk about drone formulation and the increasing adoption use of biologicals. There are really going to be opportunities to ensure that drone applications can effectively apply both. So, it's the fact that there is change on both sides. There's change on the input side. There's growing preference, reliance on biological inputs as part of the control program. Conventional active ingredients will remain important for the foreseeable future. Making the two work together has already been recognized as a challenge in a number of applications. For example, applications to seed or even ground spray. So there's already ongoing interest across large segments of the value chain around the world where there's interest in developing products that work better in combination with building either a biological that has greater resistance to the presence of conventionals and otherwise. What drones do is they create a new environment for combining those, where if dilution, larger spray volumes were beneficial for improving biological performance or even viability of microbes with conventional products, you don't have that space in a drone application. The same compatibility issues that were mentioned previously will again reappear and potentially, based on the properties of the biological versus the properties of the conventional product, those compatibility issues can be greater. The impact on performance for one or the other active ingredient can be more noticeable. So in order to be able to address those, the opportunity is really presenting itself further down the value chain, in my estimation. When you think about how these things can be addressed, you certainly will have registrants and formulators looking to develop more robust formulations, not just physically, but for biological performance. That robustness will include measuring things like impact on biologicals in higher concentration sprays. So those products will probably be driven toward selecting safer, more compatible formulation components, avoiding materials that might be more damaging to biologicals as a basic formulation choice. But even beyond that, in those regions where you have a vibrant, capable, tank-aided adjuvant community, I'll pick out the US, which has a very highly evolved formulated distributor segment. These issues can be addressed very, very quickly and flexibly with a significant amount of innovation applied from different ends of the spectrum with different crops. So there's plenty of opportunity as well, not just in improving the core formulation technology to improve concentrate compatibility, but also to provide materials in the final spray mixture that can either address potential problems or improve viability and quality of the spray altogether. So there's significant opportunity. In complexity is value, and these challenges, I think, are well recognized both by registrants and biological developers, as well as the formulator distributor community and the drone development community as well.
All right, thank you so much, Greg. And Darryl, I'll ask you the same question. What market opportunities exist when it comes to adjuvant drone formulation with syntheticals and with biologicals?
Yeah, maybe I'll get a little more granular. I think we're probably run up against time, but I can go quickly. So I'll say two things. Synthetics. Like I said before, I clearly think we have the right tools. Using safer co-solvents. Safer co-formulas, safer adjuvants, safer solvents. For example, we test a lot of solvents in the marketplace, and without calling anybody out, there's clear differences in safety profiles of these solvents, right? And there's clear advantages to using certain adjuvants. So I mean, I'll focus on biologicals for a second. I think that's probably, in my opinion, the biggest market opportunity based on the asks we get from the industry. Biologicals meaning, you have these plant extracts and these plant oils, and I think an opportunity within that segment would be biosurfactants, right? Microbially derived surfactants that spread as well or better than many synthetic surfactants. So I would say when considering formulations with pyrethrins or with essential oils or with things that are more things that are derived from microbes like spinosad, right? Consider using biosurfactants. I think it's an opportunity. Biosurfactants are growing in pharma, and they're growing in health care. So it's only obvious that once scale up becomes something that cost can go down. I think so. Biosurfactants. The other thing I would say is that beyond biosurfactants, when you think about applying live microorganisms, right? So a lot of our research this year is focused on looking at, just an example, we make a polar product solvent, great solvent. Other polar product solvents like NMP or NBP, are thought to be, safer than DMSO, for example. But our research suggests that, we'll be presenting at meetings and potentially publishing that there is definitely a difference between the solvent system you use and the survivability of the microbes that you're applying. So for example, compare, Bavaria bassiana or Meteorite anopheles, which are entomopathogenic fungi, you see a clear increase in survivability when they're blended with the DMSO over NMP, right? I'm not saying that DMSO is the best solvent, but we think that you're going to see the same thing when you think about, adjuvants as you do solvents. So there's this great ability of toxicity, some microbe spores that we see, and we're conducting more research on this. So be careful when choosing, a solvent system for your microbe-based formulations. And there is a whole world of biosurfactants that I think is going to expand exponentially in the next couple of years. So I'd give those two call outs.
Absolutely. Thanks, Darryl. And for our last question, we'll be asking all of the panelists, and Rachel, we will start with you. Looking forward, what opportunities remain in the market, and what technologies will have the greatest impact on drone spraying in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so I think this could be a topic that you could speak for quite a long time, so I'll try and keep it short and sweet. But I think some of the main developments will be less about the drone, say, becoming larger and more about the way it's used. So I see kind of one of the biggest opportunities being targeted application. So at the moment, in many cases, we're seeing drones still being used to apply products across an entire field, essentially replacing another type of sprayer, kind of one for one. I think the economics become a lot more interesting if satellite imagery, or other sensing technology identifies where weeds, pests, diseases are present, and then the drone then used to only treat those specific areas. So that's particularly relevant when input prices are high, as we're seeing at the moment. So reducing the treated area can have a much larger economic effect than simply changing the application method. I'd also expect to see further development in autonomy, as has kind of been touched on before. So that could include one operator managing several drones, more automated refilling and battery management, and better route planning. So those changes mainly matter because they improve the hectares treated per operator and reduce labor requirements. And then I guess another point I would make is that the service model may become more important. So given the pressure on farm margins, as I've stated before, with the low commodity prices, high input costs, not every farmer will want to own a drone or deal with the training, batteries, maintenance, and the regulatory requirements. So this is where contractors can play an important role. Contractors can spread those costs across a much larger area. So adoption of drone spraying may increase even where direct farm ownership grows maybe a tad more slowly. So overall, I think the next few years are likely to be about making drone spraying more economical and more precise rather than just simply improving the hardware of the aircraft itself.
All right, thank you, Rachel. And Amro will go with you next. Looking forward, what opportunities remain in the market and what technologies will have the greatest impact on drone spraying in the next 3 to 5 years?
Thank you very much. I think this is a very important question and also important to my job because my job is going to looking for different opportunities around the world. So I really thank you for Rachel because Rachel mentioned a lot of points. And also the last one is talking about business model because I see this is also one of the very important one because the drone technology is keep development, but there will be also growing a lot of different page, like different business model, different kind of target of the crops, or different kind of target of the group of the customers. I want to mention the first, like geographic opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity out there, like from different crops. View example, the most of the adoptions right now in Asia is like rice. But since the opportunity of like drones can not only just only about liquid spraying, but can handle multiple functional drones. So now the drones can do a lot, like from the smallholders is comparative and also medium-sized plantation, high-value crops like ultra wire rubers. There's a huge potential out there. The secondly about the business model opportunities, not only just about sales, but there's like a fast-growing demands for the contractors, like autonomous service model as well, like prescription. This is something that also will be one of the very key service model in the futures. Like also like drones, not only about the drone equipment himself, but also the data is also very important, like farm data subscription, the integrated precision agricultural workflow for the professional service provider who can combine with the agro input business together. So this is something also very important. Also scoring, also for the soil monitoring, yeah. And the third is that like also we have different kind of technology. Drone is one of the very important parts. So whole farm automation operation is also very important. Like drone is not only like liquid spraying in the sky, but also we have an integration solution like ground robotic RT system. So it will be another job opportunity for whole farm ecosystem designers. So this is also one of the very major blue ocean markets. And also for the 3 to 5 years, like the very key technology will be driving for the drone market. The first one I have to mention is like a fully intelligent operation. So this is very important for the new trend about drone adoption. Like SAG, we just launched a new drone like last month, like accessory. Compared to the traditional drone technology, you still need a pilot to control, to mapping, to change battery, and also refill the liquid. But completely new technology right now, we can achieve like drone airport, integrate together with the mixer station with the agrochemical, and flash charging about the battery. Before, battery charge would be taking 15 minutes, but the new charging time can shorter into 2.5 minutes, which is making drone autonomous operations possible. And liquid spraying, also refueling by himself, and also can self-clean. So it's completely new era for agricultural drone technology. There's no any intervention about pilots or laborers involved. So the drones can be 24 hours operation continuously. This is a very important part about drone technology into the 3 to 5 years. It's completely new era. Secondly, about the AI drive technology for the drones. The drone today is not only just how to spray and how to fly, but it actually is very intelligent to operate, like area, like prescription map. But prescription map, you have to be insert the imaging, the pictures, until the drones can realize. But the real technology is supposed to be an example, the AI drive with the mapping data from the real time. So the drone would be take a map every single example, like a week, and the drone will be learning about the data with a period of time and to about learning about the growing stage, about the crops, whether the area is good or whether the area is bad, and decide the drone spray better, this is the real-time operations with the prescription map. Yeah, this is very important part for the high advancing intelligence capability for the drone of nowadays or for 3 to 5 years futures. And the third and also very important one, that the drone also the navigation system and also like the perception technologies and also integration technologies, not only just limit about the drone he can spray or fertilizing, but how to adapt with the terrain, how to adapt with the obstacle avoidance system, and also how to work together with the ground robotic as a cooperational relationship, the drone flying on the sky and then connect and link up together with the ground robotic on the grounds to spray a orchard tree. The drone will spray from the top and the ground robotic spray from the bottom. Cooperation relationship and from tree to tree. So this is how the new technology is supposed to be look like. And everything, it would be the dock station. Think about it. In the future, there will no more people be controlling about the drones, ground robotic. It will be working as a map, working as a mission. You're just telling the drones, telling the robotic that you need to finish the tree by this tree, by day, by the value set up, and everything by themselves. So this is going to be the future technologies. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Amro. And it looks like we are kind of running up against time here. So what we'll do, the last question is also for Greg and Darryl, is we'll send them the question after the webinar, and we'll have the responses posted on our website. Just so that they have a chance to answer as well. And, we did get a couple of questions in the Q&A box as well. We will post those on our website along with the recording in about 2 weeks' time. My apologies, Greg and Darryl, that we've kind of butted up against time here, but we really appreciate you being here. And we want to thank all of our panelists again for the really insightful discussion. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. And thank you also again to our sponsor, Rainbow Agro, for making webinars like this possible. And thank you again for our audience, to everyone joining today. We really appreciate your support. So we hope that you join us for the next one, and thank you again.